Hi there, about a year ago I bought my first Kindle, and when I got my Kindle I was very overwhelmed trying to pick which one to get. It's not like buying an iPhone. Kindles are actually really good. They last for several years, unlike an iPhone where you typically get a new one every year or two. With the Kindle, you want to buy one that you're going to be happy with for several years. And in this video, I'm going to be telling you which Kindle will work best for you. And I'm not going to be doing it where I compare the models side by side. I think a better approach is actually comparing your reading habits and figuring out which kind of reader you are. I think there are three types of readers. We have casual readers, we have intentional readers, and we have bookworms. And depending which bucket you fall into will determine which Kindle you should get. Now the first type of reader we have is a casual reader. And I would say a casual reader is defined as someone who only reads for fun. Not really on a routine of any kind, just kind of when they have the time. Maybe when they're commuting or when they're traveling on a plane or when they get a book recommendation from a friend, they kind of finish it slowly but surely over a few months. Someone who just reads for fun at no specific pace. This person, I would personally recommend getting the Kindle Basic model, which is the lowest model, but I think is the best value for your buck. In terms of features, it has all the essentials that you would need from a Kindle. You can store thousands of books on here, you can take notes on here, you can buy all the ebooks from the Amazon store. All the features are here. It has a 6-inch display, but it only has 167 ppi. Ppi stands for pixels per inch, and that's actually not the best resolution. Most Kindles and most e-readers now have a 300 ppi, almost double what this device has. And this device will still look okay, but when you compare it side by side to reading on a Kindle Paperwhite, for example, it does not look as crisp. But you can still read just fine. If you don't have another Kindle, you won't really notice a difference at all. That's the biggest drawback of this Kindle Basic, but again, it has all the functionality. It has a 6-inch display, the same display as the higher model. It also has a front light display, meaning you could put light on the background to make it light up at night, which is also really good. It also has all the other features like Bluetooth support. If you get the occasional audiobook, you can put that on this device and sync it to your Bluetooth headphones, and that will work just fine too. Just like all the other Kindles, the battery life on this thing is also great, and it costs $89. That's a great price for a Kindle. It's the lowest cost you can get. I would recommend the higher model right above this without the special offers, without advertisements. I'll talk more about that later in the video. That costs $20 more, so the real price of this device is actually $109. Now say this is not the bucket for you. Say you are actually an intentional reader. This is somebody who reads on a daily basis. Maybe they have a daily reading habit, they have a routine of some kind where they set time aside and read books. This person may be someone who reads several books every single year, and it's something they enjoy doing, not just for fun, but something they actually need to do because they want to do it. For this person, I would recommend the Kindle Paperwhite. The Kindle Paperwhite is one model up, and this model is actually probably the most popular one that most people end up getting. It has the 6-inch display as the other Kindle Basic, but it has that 300 ppi resolution. This is great for people who read a lot of books. This is really handy for your eyes, so they actually have a nice resolution to look at. When you're reading on a Kindle, you want to make it feel like reading an actual book, and having that extra resolution makes a big difference over the long term. On top of that, the Kindle Paperwhite also has a flush display on the front that's made out of glass. It also has a nice soft touch back that's kind of like this rubberized material. The overall design of the Paperwhite is much more premium when compared against the Basic. Now when compared against the Basic model, you also have a few extra features. On the Paperwhite, you can choose between 8 gigabytes and 32 gigabytes. That's really, really handy for audiobook support. If you listen to a lot of audiobooks, having that extra support and storage really makes a big difference for storing more audiobooks on your device. On the Paperwhite, you also get one extra LED for backlight. It's actually called front light on the Kindles, and that means you get more brightness when going outside in the bright sunlight. You have a better screen for that purpose. And lastly, the main feature that the Paperwhite attracts from a lot of people is the waterproofing. Now, me personally, I don't read in the shower or in a bath or in the pool or on the beach, but some people really swear by that, and they really need to have that waterproofing feature. And if that is for you, then the Paperwhite is a must when compared against the Basic. That waterproofing feature is not available on the Basic, but you have it on the Paperwhite. Now there is a price difference between the two models over here. This starts at $129, but again, if you get the one without advertisements, the real price is actually $149. And that is a bit of an increase compared to the Basic model, but for the reasons I just mentioned, for someone who reads more intentionally, I think that extra investment is well worth it. Now lastly, we have someone called the Bookworm. The Bookworm is someone who reads every single day without fail, maybe someone who reads 1 to 2 books every single month. They love to highlight their books. They are just someone who loves to read. There's no question about it. They're also somebody who is willing to invest in new books and invest in technology to help them read more effectively. If you are a bookworm, I would strongly recommend the Kindle Oasis. This is the device that I personally have. It is a bit of an investment, but for someone who wants to have that reading habit and get as much knowledge and just intentional reading as possible out of a Kindle, the Oasis is the device for you. And the reason why is because it has a lot of extra features that make this device more pleasant to use. For example, you have a 7-inch display compared to the 6 inches on the other two models. That extra inch of display size makes a huge difference when reading on a Kindle. You have a bigger screen size, a bigger page with more text. It also makes it easier to highlight text and take notes on that bigger display. Just like the Kindle Paperwhite, the display also has a 300 ppi resolution, so it's very crispy. It feels like reading on an actual text paperback book. And you also have the same options for storage capacity for 32 gigabytes if you want to have that extra ability for audiobooks. And on top of that, this device is also waterproof, just like the Paperwhite, but there are even more features than that I haven't talked about yet. Now, one of those features is the warm light temperature control. The way I think of this is calling it night mode. It's really handy for reading at night when you're going to bed. It just has that extra readability factor to it. It makes it more pleasant to read without having that blue tinted light coming in your face. It's nothing like reading on a phone on any of the Kindles, but on the Oasis especially, it's just so much more pleasant to have that orange kind of tint to the light over here. It just makes it more fun to read on. Another cool premium feature is the ambient light sensor, so you don't have to worry about going outside and going back in. Again, if you're a bookworm, you're probably reading in multiple locations. So when you're traveling about bringing your Kindle with you, the brightness will automatically adjust no matter where you are. That's just one small quality of life feature you have on the Oasis that just makes your life easier and encourages you to read in more locations. Another premium feature is this build quality. This thing is all metal. When compared to the other Kindles, it's a night and day difference. This feels like buying an Apple product. It just feels so nice to hold. It's all metal. It's very nice, very durable, but it also feels a bit fragile at the same time. You kind of want to get a case when having a Kindle Oasis, so there's a bit of a trade-off there. But you also get these page turn buttons. It's the only Kindle right now that they're selling that has page turn buttons. Now, personally, when I got my Kindle Oasis, I thought these would be a requirement for me, but it turns out the touchscreen is just fine too. I wouldn't buy the Oasis for that sole purpose of page turn buttons. It really isn't a requirement. But one thing I do feel is totally worth the investment is the faster processor you get on the Kindle Oasis. This is the only Kindle that has a dual core processor. Kindles aren't very tech savvy in terms of their processing speeds, but having a dual core processor in the Kindle Oasis makes it so much faster when compared to the Paperwhite. I see a noticeable difference when just browsing about on my Kindle, highlighting things, taking notes. It just feels so much more snappy on my Oasis, and I personally prefer that, especially as someone who takes notes and highlights all the time. Now, where this device really turns people off is the price. The Oasis starts at $249, and again, if you don't want the special offers or the advertisements, the real price is actually $269, which is really expensive when compared to the other devices. Again, the other devices do the same exact thing in terms of functionality. What you're really paying for here are the premium features and quality of life updates. You don't need them per se, but they do make a big difference in your reading experience. Now, I want to spend a second talking about the special offers thing I mentioned a few times. On all of the Kindles, you can buy the baseline version that comes with something called advertisements built in. And these advertisements are really annoying in my opinion. When the device is in sleep mode, you'll see an advertisement on the screen. And I don't like that at all. I don't want to be bombarded by ads when I'm browsing on my Kindle. Kindles are meant to be mindful devices that you read on. I think it's totally worth it, no matter which one you get, to pay the extra $20 to remove the advertisements. Another really cool thing I should mention is if you have a Kindle already, say you have an older Kindle from way back in the day that you never used, you can actually trade it in and get an Amazon gift card in exchange for it through their website. But on top of that, no matter which Kindle you have, even if it's a really old one, you can get 20% off of a new Kindle just by trading in your old one. So if you have an old Kindle laying around, I would definitely recommend using the trade-in feature to get some value back for it, and then Amazon can recycle your old Kindle properly as well. If you already have a Kindle, I'm really interested to hear which one you have. Leave a comment down below with which Kindle you have and why you have that model. I would love to hear from you. If you want to check out my reviews for all these Kindles on the table in more depth, check out my playlist for e-reader reviews where I explore all the e-readers out there and do reviews on them. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.